Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Matt Dion. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for ElasticPath. Just a reminder, we're going to do a draw for a GoPro here. So at the end, before I do it, I'll collect business cards, or you can write your name on a piece of paper. You can do it that way as well. So we want to talk today about commerce, e-commerce, but different kind of commerce. Everybody's familiar with e-commerce. We've all bought stuff online, and but you know, traditionally commerce works well for selling shirts and socks and pants online, but it doesn't help companies like you.
Talk louder.
It's a little noisy back. It's a little noisy.
Is it noisy back there? Okay. Yeah, no problem. So, let's say traditional commerce is great for selling stuff, but it doesn't help digital companies because you're not selling items. You're not selling physical things. You're selling rights to access your stuff. You're selling amazing experiences. And you're not just selling that on a storefront, you're selling that in mobile apps and phones and TVs and social sites and all that. So that's what ElasticPath does. So we're an e-commerce company that about 4 years ago we had a lot of companies in the content digital space. This is 100% what we do. So you can see the kind of companies that use our platform, software and gaming, media and publishing, which I'm sure a lot of you folks today are from, telecom and some other related consumer services there. Collectively, these customers do $6.2 billion of commerce through our platform. So we go to scale. Some of our customers are very large. Symantec does $1.6 billion. If you buy Norton, you're buying it from ElasticPath.
1.7.
1.7? Okay.
And growing.
And growing, yeah. So we're a very, very solid, large enterprise level platform. We just focus on selling digital content. And we partner up very closely with our customers to ensure that their projects are going to be successful. You can talk to any of those clients up there. Our projects do not fail. We also have a blog, the #1 e-commerce blog in the world. It's called Get Elastic, and it's got really good, valuable content. So we publish about 3 times a week. Linda Bustos blogs there, and fantastic. So encourage you to subscribe to that. It's pretty crowded today, and we'll probably be shuffled out of the room quickly. So I encourage you. I know Pearson's here. We also have Time. John's from Time, and about four people from Time. They're also a customer of ours. Talk to them or come by our booth. You probably smelled the popcorn already. Come by and talk to us if you're interested in anything that you hear today. So we wanted to do this in a panel format so that, and we called it Rubber Meets the Road because, you come to these conferences and you hear all these stats and business model transformation, oh my God. But we wanted to go deeper about what is one of the leaders in this space doing, specifically in the business strategy and in their technology strategy. So we're going to dive into that real deep today. So it's a case study about what Pearson's doing. So today I have Chris and Greg. Greg Fuller is on the business side. He's the VP of Marketing Technology, and Chris is the VP of Software Engineering. So business side and technical side. We have David Card, who's one of the GigaOM research analysts, and we have Sal Visca, who's our CTO at ElasticPath. So we're going to look at not only Pearson's business strategy to sell more content, but the technical, the platform strategy behind that. That involves pulling together commerce, content management, and in their API strategy. Okay, so to kick things off, I'm just a casual observer of the industry. I'm not an analyst or anything, but it's pretty clear we're in a post-PC world. We're not browser-based, traditional browser-based anymore. So some stats I've read that I just pulled up. These different pieces of glass, as it referred. 63% of people own 3 or more connected devices. I think this was a Gartner quote. By 2015, over 50% of online purchases will be done on these alternative touch points. Media and entertainment app usage grew 268% this year over last. Shopping apps grew 247%. And people are spending 6 times the amount of time on these apps. So clearly, if the experience is good, people are spending time and money on these alternative pieces of glass. So David, as the analyst, I'll turn it over to you to, what's the current?
I think we're living in a multi-screen world, no question about it, and the numbers of pieces of glass are growing phenomenally, right? So tablets is growing 30-40% compounded annually next 5 years. Smartphone penetration in the U.S. is over half, and going to get there in Europe pretty soon. So we've got the devices are getting out there, and many of the experiences are a twin screen or 3-screen or multi-screen experience. The consumption, not so much the consumption, but the purchasing of digital goods on these extra platforms, that's still pretty new. So the growth is there, the opportunity is there, and we need to work together as an industry to make the experience smoother and easier and better because digital purchasing from a cell phone, for instance, it's still single-digit adoption even among smartphone users in the U.S. So 3 to 6% of people are even just cashing in coupons, and we've seen from the digital goods business as a whole, music downloads business is fairly well understood now. About 15-20% of online adults are monthly music downloaders. Video's about half that. So and that's still based on the PC. So we do expect companies like companies like Pandora and Spotify, their usage goes up with the phone usage. So I think the digital dollars will follow. But I do want to set the stage as it's a relatively the engagement is coming, the purchasing should follow, but we're still at a fairly small adoption base now. But all the hope is there and all the promise is there.
I think we heard they're digital dimes, not dollars.
It's better. Yeah. They used to be nickels and pennies.
Digital quarters. Let's go with quarters.
Dimes are coming. Yeah.
Digital quarters.
So Sal, the next question is directed at you. Obviously at the beginning, all these large customers that we saw up there, before they were. Okay, we need to have a really awesome site, a cool web store,
right,
and then optimize and A/B split test, and all that stuff we've worked on for years and years. So now these clients are all going, pieces of glass. So how are you as a technology vendor adapting the roadmap strategy to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, commerce used to be about populating a product catalog with all the things you want to sell, and you would merchandise it in different ways. You'd put it up in a destination site. You would try to send out email campaigns and bring people to that site. Clearly, people are experiencing the internet in different ways. A lot of people don't even go through a browser a lot. They're going through applications, or they're going through their TV, or they're consuming their services and content of the web in different ways. The browser used to be the way they would go and kind of surf around. Surfing is a lot less the way people are finding things themselves. So from a technology standpoint, we're trying to not just take that content and push it out through different channels. You hear omni-channel and multi-channel, and that's a very push type of model. It's like we have something to sell and try to push that out there. Now it's about trying to create a set of services and content and help people consume it in the context of whatever they're doing. If they're watching a movie on their tablet, if they're reading an ebook, that kind of thing, they should be able to, that application should be able to reach back into the commerce system and figure out what other things should I be getting. And the second point I'd make is people are buying not things, not necessarily buying the content, they're buying entitlements. So you'll hear the word entitlements used a lot. So a lot of our commerce platforms from a technology standpoint need to manage the concept of entitlements. You might buy access to video for a 24-hour period of time in standard definition or high definition. Or you might be buying an entitlement to a subscription, and that subscription is based on time. And maybe it's based on how much you're actually accessing. It's metered in different ways. So our platforms need to be able to support all those different panes of glass we talked about, but again, trying to turn the problem on its head and not push content out, but allow content to be pulled from many different places.
Cool. Actually, I forgot to mention, at our booth, I hired some university students to build, what do you want your textbooks to look like in the future? So I had them build an iOS app, and we call it Textbook of the Future. It's basically just kind of a shell of an ebook, and it dynamically pulls content from the server and builds and allows them to look at videos and preview their content and then buy it in the context of their learning. It's cool. I'll show it to you if you come by our booth. So Greg, Chris, you guys, Pearson, clearly a leader in this space, doing $9.2 billion in revenue, and now 50% of that is now digital and services, so non-physical. So that's amazing. I watched some videos of John Fallon, your CEO, and he's talking about that's one of the key three strategies, right? Is your digital transformation. And he says by 2015 he wants 70% of your company revenue to be digital and services. Can you speak to that a bit? And
so some of the trends that we're actually seeing in the education space, particularly in emerging markets, is they're skipping the computer altogether, right? So they're going to these pieces of glass and enabling commerce where people are geographically or how they want to experience the experience is one of the kind of key things that we're working on right now.
It's that point of use commerce that becomes really important.
Talk a little louder. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said it's the point of use commerce that becomes incredibly important. And I think in order to support that, I think we were lucky enough mid last year to say we need to look at our technical strategy and how do we support the business strategy. What do we put in place to do that? And we really took more of a foundational look at technology, not necessarily say, okay, I need to have a place where I can build an online store and all that. That's great. We need to support that. But how do we put foundational technologies in place to support an ecosystem, right? Really, we need to build an ecosystem. How do we build for the unknown, which is really where we're at right now? How do we put a strategy in place that allows to tap into these services like commerce, like content, and build a really, for me, from a technology perspective, building a solid REST API strategy. And our selection of Elastic Path was basically based on that, because they had a really strong commerce API that we could build on top to build those services. So that was really the drive, and this is how kind of the business side and the technology side kind of came together. And really it's becoming and melding into one, right? So traditional IT and business has always been these,
Silos, right?
Right, these silos.
so we were at this show 2 years ago, and people were the big topic. The dominant theme was oh my God, the dollars are turned into dimes and pennies, and advertising doesn't work anymore. Yeah, so talking about like what you just talked about, change of business model and stuff. So, for this session, we wanted to kind of roll up the sleeves a little bit and go, okay, yeah, it's changing. We need new business models. How do you do it specifically with technology? So Chris, you're doing that right now, right? Stitching together commerce, content management, Adobe CQ5, subscriptions, all kinds of technologies. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So we actually started this, I guess, at the beginning of this year. So last year we did quite a bit of analysis determining kind of what technologies we use to build this ecosystem. And myself and Alvin, who's in the back of the room, really put together kind of a product strategy. We treat it as a product within Pearson, and building a platform that we call our digital and online and e-commerce platform, which really has a set of services and capabilities. Those services, the primary services in those are e-commerce, content management, analytics, and how we tie those into our traditional products, but also how do we deal with things that are not in a product catalog, right? So we made selections, like I said before, of Elastic Path to drive the commerce and transactioning piece, Adobe CQ, and the Adobe CQ piece is really more for, I call that almost the traditional side of the business, the storefronts piece, but we're also building capabilities and services within that to expose content services as well. So really the driver is e-com services through a set of REST APIs, content services, again, also through a set of REST APIs, and also services to tap into our legacy content as well. And we put this data virtualization tier in front of all of our legacy systems so that we can also enable through services to get content from our legacy platforms and not really have to touch that layer. And over time, divest or get rid of those systems. Because what will happen over time is that the product piece will come almost to the front, and then those things will start to be divested and disappear. I think we were lucky in the sense that we were given the opportunity to go out and say, if you were to do this right, and you had, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And that's what we were given the opportunity. We're lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
And I was able to go out and find partners. We started with the usual suspects, and we quickly found that in this space, there's not a lot of folks that do what Elastic Path does. It didn't exist, right? It came down to a very, very, very small group.
Cool.
And it tied really clearly to our strategy in terms of a business and where we were going. Because if I think to the future, I talk about this ecosystem as well. Things like shopping APIs. It's probably nothing. They're not that things that publishers are talking about today.
Yeah.
What do you mean that you're going to create a set of shopping APIs?
Yeah.
To give it to who, right? You're going to create an ecosystem, right? So that people can developers could now be, oh, I could make revenue through some kind of rev share model with a publisher selling their products.
Yeah, can you talk a bit more about that? Because so you're doing the shared service.
I'm not going to give the house away here.
Internally, yeah. So all you have. I had the
folks
stat
from Wiley
here.
in the front row.
But you have thousands of different properties and brands and things like that, right? So obviously just your shared services and that scale of all these other developers and content creators being able to pull the capabilities into the content's critical just within Pearson, which is massive.
Well, our first goal is to support those internal groups first, right? Internal product groups, right? I sometimes don't know everything that actually I don't know everything that we sell today.
Yeah,
it's just so vast.
Yeah.
Right. Hence why we need to take an approach where it's completely open and agnostic.
Yeah, because before, if you were just building a website, the 3 or 4 people that knew your commerce platform could do that. But now you're talking about thousands of commerce stores, I guess. All over the
I'll
place,
give you a
right?
perfect example. I was on a call 2 days ago with a new business within Pearson called Pearson Colleges that I didn't even know exist.
Yeah.
That their goal is to build a college, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be selling direct to, because Pearson traditionally was a institutional sales organization,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It wasn't really a direct to consumer business.
Yeah.
Right? So now we're looking at, well, there's really a transformation here to a direct to consumer for us, right? And like I said, this Pearson College thing was completely, I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
So somebody said, no, hey, there's these guys that want to do commerce. This is within our own organization.
Yeah.
So that's happening quite often. So the internal use, very important, is our first goal. And then but we're building it in mind that this needs to be externalized as well.
Yeah.
And as we build out this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Well, and also, even beyond that, Pearson is known for acquiring companies, and we acquire. How do you actually, we were sitting down and talking through some of these challenges. We don't know what the next ecosystem is that's going to come in. How do you actually build that agnostic enough? I think that the direct business is one of those emerging models that the screen, the APIs, things like that are really transforming what we're doing. If you look at one of our strategies, actually is direct. So Wall Street English, for example, in China, we're the largest teacher of English in China, right? So those direct delivery models, the Arizona State thing, I think that the Financial Times, which is a Pearson company, was very brave when they actually took the FT app off the App Store. And it was not just we didn't want to give a piece of our margin away, it was we didn't want to disaggregate the customer experience. We actually wanted to have a relationship with the customer as opposed to giving that relationship over to another company, whether it's Amazon or Apple or whomever. It's not just commerce, it's not just experience, it's customer, right?
Yeah.
And that relationship is also one of those building blocks that you've got to figure out. And how you're engaging with them, whether it's on a screen, on a big screen, on a little screen, in a social platform, in your own learning management things, is really, really key for us. Embracing open source is really key for us, right? There's a huge trend in education right now, open educational resources. The Gates Foundation, Khan Academy. Working with competitors actually is one of the things that we're examining, or what we've considered competitors traditionally. How do we actually all play together and share together in this kind of larger ecosystem?
Yeah. So if you have to put yourself, I know the lines are blurry, but if you have to put yourself in a technical IT bucket or a business bucket, how many people are on the business side? How many, I guess the rest of you are technical, right? It's technical side. So when we talk APIs, does that, how many business people go, yeah, I get it. I get what APIs are. I need them. I know them. Yeah, okay, good. Because it used to be, that would be like, oh, technical religious war, rest, so bad. But now I think it's critical for business people to have the basics understanding. Good. Just wanted to validate that.
Those lines will continue to blur.
Yeah.
And I think that people who are succeeding in this transformed economy are people who can actually walk that razor's edge between, having a deep understanding of the technical capabilities and the benefits that provide, and a deep understanding of what the business imperatives are.
Yeah.
So if I could just jump in for a second, there was a really important point that Greg made around commerce is not about just transactions anymore. It is about a digital experience, and it's managing that experience with your consumer. And it's not about that in commerce, we always used to talk about metrics like average order value and conversion rates and things like that. Now it's becoming more about customer lifetime value. It's that ongoing relationship you have with the consumer, and you learn from them. And a lot of times, the interactions are not going to result in a transaction payment, but every interaction is valuable in terms of understanding that user, their behaviors, trying to predict their intention and what they're trying to do. So obviously it's not just about analytics that gives you a dashboard, but it's about operational business intelligence that drives back in and learns. This is an ongoing learning system, a continuous learning system. So it's really changed from a technology standpoint what we build in a platform. And as the guys from Pearson have to say, it's about building for the unknown. We have no idea of how these business models are going to evolve and how these services are going to get consumed. So we need to build flexibility right into the platform. And that's the number one thing we do, is build that flexibility in.
So, to do this kind of thing, you need IT and business working together. This isn't like the business going off on their own and buying SaaS to do this or something. But so could you guys talk about the partnership that you guys have together as business and IT working together?
I just love Greg. No. We're bosom buddies.
Well, keep it on the work level. Okay?
Yeah, keep it on the work level.
Also, I was curious, is there, where does editorial fit in that? And it might be different for the FT versus education thing, but it's, do content programmers all of a sudden have to learn merchandising skills, and how do you make that happen?
Yes, actually. I mean, so when we look at these things, especially in the product development and editorial side, this is really transformative for them too, because I think traditional publishing has a legacy of it's page perfect, when really now we're looking at what are these micro granular pieces of content or learning objects or however you want to slice that up, and how does that content describe itself, so that when you're in an experience like this, say, you know what, hey, clearly. You're struggling with the quadratic equation, whatever it is, right? Here's some additional supplemental material for you that helps you. So it's not just the analytics from a commerce perspective, it's also the analytics from a learner's perspective. And really being able to diagnose and prescribe, diagnose where a student is struggling and prescribe, a way out of that,
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Dave, I think there's really a blurring of the lines occurring here. And more and more each day, it's less about IT business. We're one. It's really becoming one team. I'm not trying to be cheesy, but we're really becoming one team because we have to, right? We are becoming a content technology company. Is what it is, and we can't do that. One can't do it without the other, right? So I think personally for us, it's been a great experience, and there's a lot of things that we've learned over time. What not to do, like boil the freaking ocean and try to get every possible thing that we can get done, and do things in increments, do things in small chunks, get small successes, and then move from there. And I think that with that blurring of the lines, the strategy now aligns with the business strategy now aligns with technology. Yeah, it takes time though.
It does, and it's not without its pain points, right? Yep. And it's not turfy pain points, but it's really like. No, this is what I need because I have this, I have a $200 million adoption in Texas this year, right? So we got to get something, there. I think that if it weren't for leaders like Chris, I think if it weren't for leaders like John Fallon, like Genevieve Shore, we wouldn't have that kind of relationship, kind of allowing those lines to be blurred. There's no ego there. It's really about doing the right thing for the customer. I mean, Don Kilburn, who's one of our CEOs in our custom business, said, customer happiness needs to be, one of the 4 pillars of Pearson, right? Kind of really making sure that we understand what their needs are. And I don't care what the organizational structure looks like, right? Remember that you're working for the learner.
So what hasn't worked? What's the things that have given you the scar tissue? What are some things you've tried that's, flopped or hasn't worked, or you say, just don't go down this path?
You know what? I think Chris's point about don't boil the ocean. I think that I think like a lot of businesses and a lot of business leaders like to hear that there's a silver bullet answer to things, and these are not small initiatives, and they're not necessarily quick initiatives, and you'll learn some lessons along the way. I think one of the things that's that's hard about coming from a publishing legacy is that when the book goes out the door, it's letter perfect. And something that we're learning now is to be brave enough to risk something, to get it out the door. Like, how long was Gmail in beta for, right?
3 years.
Forever,
4
right? And so that is also, you know, a mind shift for a company like ours. You know, that once the book is done, it's done. Once the app is done, you move on. No, it's a kind of constant evolution, and that I think, bigger than anything, has enabled, that mind shift has enabled the blurring of lines between product development, which is, you know, our editorial function, marketing function, sales function, IT function.
Yeah.
One of the key challenges that I have as a shared services provider within Pearson is that, you know, everybody's a snowflake, right? Each business says, well, I'm different. You know, I sell different. You know, my products are different. And yes, in some aspects that's true, but what you end up doing is then, you know, you have a point solution for this person, a point solution for this organization. So what we're trying to do is really eliminate that. But the only way to do that is to bring these folks who are really owners of these businesses into the conversation and saying, what are you guys doing across the organization? There's not, and you'll find that there's more similarity than there is differences. So that's my challenge as a shared service, and you know.
No, and we'll customize to the margins, but you know what? 80% of it is really already aligned. We may have, you know, we come from different, you know, I hate to mention our imprints, but you know, Scott Forsman had a way of doing it, Prentice Hall had a way of doing it, and America's Choice had a way of doing it. And really, they were all doing the same thing. They had their own language. They grew up with them as they grew up as companies before acquisition, and they still like to hold on to the, oh, but we do it this way. But you know what? Let's turn that down and turn on how might we do it better together. Because again, you know, the investments that we're making in this space are also not small.
Yeah.
And you know, these point-to-point solutions where everyone's doing their own thing. I mean, look, we have 64 web content management systems across the globe. We have, I don't know, 27 ERPs, you know, from companies that we've acquired and just kind of allowed things to run. And I think that, you know, really taking this opportunity to put our own house in order for the benefit of the learner is the evolution of our business.
Can you back it up a bit to, you know, I don't know, the early days of the project, or David, you might want to jump in here too. You know, I think Pearson, what you're doing with this magnitude of revenue and this amount of online is maybe aspirational for a lot of content companies and stuff. So a lot of people might be going, oh my God, you got thousands of developers working on this. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what does someone do if they go, man, I want to get there tomorrow, where do I start? You know, I talk to these kind of vendors and I need a team of this, or I work with, we're working with Virtusa, which is an integrator partner here. So you can just talk about, I don't know, a little bit behind the scenes of what the team looks like, how you get started, you know, if you want to do this.
It's probably not as big as people might imagine.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of small, highly effective teams, and that's what we're trying to do. Though, I have to say, with this program that we just kicked off, we're in, you know, iteration 2 of our first 7 iterations of this program. We have teams globally located. We have a team in Vancouver, we have a team in India, we have a team in New York, we have product folks in the UK, and that's really a picture of what our businesses look like as well, right? That they're in multiple locations. So it's challenging for that. So from the sales, from a scale in terms of size and team size, internally we're probably talking, you know, 20 folks from Pearson at different levels, whether it be developers, product folks, engagement folks. You know, then the business side is probably, it's a smaller team at this point.
Probably 8.
So,
you know.
and, you know, and the vendors we scale up and down depending on the need. You know, the team that we have from EP it's not a huge team. No. There's probably 7 or 8 people, and there's folks from my team embedded within the EP team. So from that perspective, it's not, you know, hey, we have 1,000 developers sitting in a room somewhere doing this stuff, right? It's about being effective. It's about building small teams that can really crank this stuff out, getting smart people.
About,
you know, that's hard.
About a 9-month project, is it?
A little less than that.
Yeah.
A little less than 9 months.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you have any models you looked at, either from the business or the tech perspective? I often, Paul Sweeting, who's written about this topic for us several times, and I'll bring up his name again probably in a minute, One thing that we found is that, for instance, when you're in the concept of selling digital goods in the act of an experience, right? Really the only success model right now comes from the games industry.
Right.
You guys have some gaming customers too,
yeah.
But you wonder how much of that can really translate into education. Maybe it can.
It absolutely can. It absolutely can. So one of the largest online presences really in the world is Pop Tropica, which is a Pearson company, and it is about it's about gaming. And it grew out of, many of you have heard of Jeff Kinney, who wrote, the Wimpy Kid books. Jeff's a Pearson employee also in his spare time. And it was Jeff's brainchild, but it really came out of a business called Funbrain, which was a Pearson company, which was the gamification of learning. And we're finding, especially with early childhood learners and up into elementary grades, that the best learning experiences are serendipitous learning experiences where you kind of don't even know you're learning, and yet you can demonstrate mastery. And games are absolutely core to that.
So games is one example. I think other companies in the media business with digital goods have had success with the try before you buy. That's classic, right? I remember doing some survey work that suggested that people who had free trials converted 6 times more often than those that didn't. What other are there other sort of in-experience transaction? Music, buy one or listen for free and then buy the download. Yeah, that would be.
I think second screen
freemium.
Freemium is classic.
It seems second screen experiences are starting to get there as well, as people are watching and content on their screen and then having their tablet. Being able to get promotions. We're starting to see that come around.
Huge opportunity because it's like 2/3 of people who have tablets regularly watch TV simultaneously, but probably only 40% of them are doing anything even remotely related to the on-screen programming. It's mostly a distraction, right? So the opportunity to sync promotions and things is largely untapped.
I know the content companies have a bigger share of my wallet just because my kids know my iTunes password. I don't know how many times they've said, "Dad, can I get this thing? It's 99 cents to buy a virtual frog," and then I see this bill for $24 for frog food on credit card. So that's a good model too.
Frictionless commerce.
I think frictionless goes too far, but
we kind of looked at Gilt, actually.
The GILT.
GILT.
Okay, so shopping,
which was an interesting
sales,
kind of
flash
how
sales.
You analog that and how you promote at specific times of the day. I mean, they actually have a fairly sophisticated approach when it comes to that.
That's an interesting one because I would encourage experimentation in that regard too, because we did some research on means of discovering content, and it's still primarily, if you ask somebody how do you find out about new entertainment, for instance, it's the top score is going to be friends advice. Lots of good personalization recommendation engine work going on there, but it's still primarily a word of mouth kind of marketplace. So if we can take the social experience like a Gilt shopping thing and bolt that into the consumption experience or the media experience, there may be some real promise there, because what we found with early adopters, the people who used social media for content discovery, which is a fairly small group of people now, but it's probably growing, it's probably the 20%, the top quintile, they were 3 or 4 times more likely to be digital purchasers. So not only are the social discoverers potentially your brand advocates, and they might spread the word as well, and that's something you could enable. You could give them bonuses for doing that too if your commerce system is flexible enough to handle it. So they might be your brand advocates and pass the word. They themselves are actually likely to buy a lot of stuff, or at least 3 times more likely to buy than the average customer is. So I guess I'm kind of a skeptical believer in the whole social media, social commerce space, but I am a believer. I'm just I don't think we've quite figured it out yet.
We haven't. I don't think
it's not just Groupon. Groupon is not social commerce.
Right.
Facebook stores not social commerce. But we'll learn what that means, I think.
Well, I have an example of that. So I'm a big Yelp user. I go into a restaurant, I check in, I immediately get an offer. Hey, you want to buy $20 worth of anything for $10?
Yep.
I say, yep, I'm going to spend $10 to get $20 worth of food while I'm sitting here. That's social commerce.
Yep.
That's a perfect example. And you know, what you would call it, Foursquare is doing the same thing as well. A lot of like, hey, this guy just checked in. We're going to give you a free beer, or we're going to give you some free salty pretzels. So you can drink more.
Yeah.
So that's what
Free salty pretzels. Yeah, let's take a note of that one.
I think you're wearing those new Google glasses and ordering here right now.
I am.
Yeah.
This will magically get filled up.
We actually have a video we're going to post on our blog in a couple of days. Some of our internal developers did a mock of the Google glasses, where it's guys walking around ordering hot dogs. And, you know, but it's cool because he goes into a corner store and sees a Time magazine, looks at it and goes, I want to subscribe to that, and then he picks up his phone and the subscription's there, kind of thing. And that's totally doable, you know, that kind of stuff right now. So that's pretty cool stuff. So I don't know how much time we have. Probably about 10, 15, I think. So what questions from the audience? Yeah.
You said legacy systems that presumably replacing the last time. What kind of legacy systems? Are they just old COBOL systems? Are they other packages, integrations? What kind of legacy systems?
All of the above. A lot of it is where our product data sits. A lot of it is where our fulfillment pieces sit. So we still have mainframe. We have one of our biggest product systems is still on the mainframe on the higher education side. So it really covers the gamut. So it's from, when I say legacy, I'm talking about like mostly in the product space and some in
the editorial space.
And the editorial space as well.
You also mentioned competitors that you're either going to try to collaborate with or who you just feel you compete with. Who do you see as your competitors, this big company that you are?
That's always a tough question.
Yeah, and you also had an interesting angle about, well, as you said, the FT pulled out of the App Store, but not necessarily for margins, for customer relations. But there's also some notions going around there about a kind of a common marketplace, perhaps, for, I don't want to use the term syndication yet. Maybe I'll sit on that one. Maybe I'll sit on that one for a little while. But the idea that there might be a pool where, you know, where educational content could come from multiple sources, for instance, and how. It's more than just like throwing an API out there to actually make that happen.
It's open educational resources, and I don't think, I mean, we've kind of toe in the water stuff. Online Learning Exchange, for example, is one of ours that we're kind of content provider agnostic. You know, and this can be self-published content, it can be peer-reviewed content, it can be truly academically researched content. But I think that there's a space for all of that. I think from a strategy perspective, how do you evaluate the efficacy of that content is one of the things that I think the learning industry, right, is going to struggle with, right? So I think that I look at organizations like Khan Academy, and I say that's an organization that really has you know, didn't boil the ocean, you know, was posting YouTube videos to help his cousin learn, you know, fractions.
Right.
Are they a competitor? Not in the traditional sense. I mean, there's Cengage, there's Mifflin, there's McGraw. I mean, the companies that, you know, are big companies. But I think that there are the things that actually keep me up at night are not those companies, and you know, Pearson probably doesn't keep them up at night. I think it's the companies that we don't know. I think it's the companies that we do know that are going to make a play in this space. So News Corp, for example, you know, Amplify, buying Wireless Generation. You know, I think it's more about frenemies than it is about competitors. Yeah.
Co-opetition.
Yeah. Co-opetition. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I had a question for David. You talked about this multi-stream experience. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more as to, is that related to the program content or the ad content being tailored?
Yeah, when we survey people, they're mostly checking email or doing something completely unrelated. So I think the synchronization opportunity, it could be programming or it could be advertising. So or both, right? So like Yahoo TV was dabbling in some you know, sound analysis. They would identify. It's like it's the way Shazam works, where if they hear the ad, they could promote something that might be on the second screen that would be related to it. And of course, that could migrate to the main screen too, because smart TVs they're not necessarily connected. There a lot of them are being sold. They're not all connecting.
This is why Apple's making TVs now,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Why would Apple want to make a TV? Like, why does Apple want to make a TV?
It's going to be another app platform
right,
too.
Exactly, it's going to be another app, and it's now connected to your device that has all this information about who you are, what you like, and all. Now you can translate that to
the internet of everything, as people talk about now,
right.
cars and fridges and all these things. Everything is instrumented. Everything is able to kind of participate in that ecosystem. Everything is able to kind of reach in and call a service to say, what would be good content if I'm downloading maps on my my screen in the car. These kinds of things. Am I paying for that content and all that?
And you can also do some sort of interim steps towards where it's not a technical integration, but for instance, if you know that you've got a TV program going on that has a lot of Twitter followers, you could manually monitor what's going on in relation to your show and pump stuff in there that could be.
A lot of shows do that now, where you have like the Twitter stream.
Exactly, and you don't even have to. Doesn't have to be like on screen integrated. It could be interns in the back room watching their tweet deck and trying to get involved in the conversation as well. So I think we'll get to that point where stuff is really multi-screen syndicated, and you'll see the same ad on the iPad as you will on the big screen. I fully believe we'll get there. There were early experiments with that with last web generation before there were tablets, when Monday Night Football was trying to synchronize the ads on the websites with the program broadcast. So I think we're gonna.
Hey, let's do the draw, because I know people are anxious to run off to the next one. So can you close your eyes, Sal? And
if they're gone, do they get the?
No, you have to be here.
Gotta
to
be
win.
here to
Sorry.
win.
Be here.
Because I don't want to have to find people.
David Klein, Crane Communications.
All right, congratulations. Thank you very much for coming. If you want to talk more about this, we'll be at the booth to the end of the day. So thanks a lot.
Yeah.